So we're going to be talking about universities today and how they have become talent magnets, but much more than that. I've got David Staley. Professor Staley is a writer, designer, futurist, historiographer, presenter, educator, advisor, public intellectual, and he's been described as both an avant-garde scholar and eclectic academic. And he's all of those things. He's an associate professor in the departments of history and design at The Ohio State University, and someone we're very familiar with because Professor Staley gave a keynote at ICF's 2020 summit, and he blew a lot of people away, including myself. He's the author of several books, including the AI Symposium, Anticipatory Biographies, Personal Histories of the Future, Alternative Universities, Speculative Design for Innovation in Higher Education, Visionary Histories, a collection of his essays about the future. He is the host of the Voices of Excellence podcast and president of Columbus Futurists, a local think tank. In 2022, he was awarded Best Freelance Writer by the Ohio Society of Professional Journalists for his next Futures column with Columbus Underground. I did not know that. Well, today we're going to focus on another of his books, Knowledge Towns, Colleges and Universities as Talent Magnets. The book, which he co-wrote with Dominic Endicott, argues that higher educational institutions are crucial for attracting remote knowledge workers and fostering economic development in our post-pandemic era, in our strange and evolving era as well, with AI and local democratization taking shape. The book proposes a new model where colleges act as knowledge enterprises, becoming central to a community's identity and growth by creating a symbiotic, he refers to it as town gown ecosystem, I love that draws talent and revitalizes local economies. We believe it's a roadmap for communities and universities to collaborate on building innovation and attracting people to live and to work in place. And these are ideas that are not unfamiliar to ICF. It's kind of where we live. David Staley, welcome to the intelligent community.
Thank you very much, Lou. I'm just so delighted to be here.
Well, it's great to see you.
Thank you for that very, very generous introduction. Thank you.
Well, I could go on, but it's it blows me away every time I think about what you do. And I didn't know about that award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, let's establish the concept of the knowledge town, one where colleges and universities are talent magnets as well as knowledge enterprises, which may be a phrase that our audience is unfamiliar with.
So we wrote this book, Dominic and I, or at least the idea for it began right in the midst of the pandemic and the lockdowns, when it was become, well, first of all, many of us had the opportunity to be able to work from home, and what a number of knowledge workers were discovering in that year, 2020, even into 2021. Is that if they can work from home, that means that home could be anywhere. It didn't have to be where the office is. And so we saw, at least in the early days of the pandemic, and in some ways, I think this pattern has continued, is that a number of knowledge workers decided, I work for a Silicon Valley company, but I either can't afford or I don't like living here. I'll move someplace and work where I actually want to be. And so the question that Dominic and I began with is, what makes a place attractive, especially for these knowledge workers? Why would a knowledge worker want to come and live in your town or your city? And we devised a number of characteristics, I think, of these places. Good quality of life, affordable housing, the streets are walkable. We had a number of these. One of the features, though, is that it has some sort of academic center attached to it, that it's a place that values ideas and the innovation that can come from that. One would assume we're talking about a typical sort of college town. But one of the things that we argue in the book is that many colleges and universities don't necessarily play the role of a talent magnet. They're very good, for instance, they might be good at attracting undergraduates, But what we're talking about is being able to attract knowledge workers. Again, not just simply undergraduate talent,
Right.
but talent as it's already been developed. And so
it's a genuine economic proposition.
It absolutely is, and we see the university, the college or university, working very closely with the city, with the economic development department, whoever that might be, to be very actively engaged as a talent attractor, and that's where we came up with the knowledge enterprise idea. We use that as a way, I think, to distinguish a traditional college or university and the sort of institution that we have in mind. So a knowledge enterprise can continue to do the same things that a college or university does. Have a business program, have intercollegiate football, have sororities and fraternities, but you also have these other attributes, and most of these focus around ways to attract talent to that area. I'm working on an idea right now that's sort of an extension of the Knowledge Towns idea, and it's the idea of stickiness. That is to say, a college or university can attract undergraduates. What are they doing to keep those undergraduates in the same place rather than coming, getting education and leaving and going someplace else?
It's a huge issue, right? Because
yes,
you're educating all these people. You're creating this literal knowledge enterprise over the course of 4 or 6 years.
Yes.
And then you're losing the population. I mean, if 20% stay, that's a lot, isn't it, David?
Wow. Some places would love to have 20%,
yeah.
I think.
Right. So you're saying let's keep it sticky. Let's keep them here. And that is a big nut to crack for a lot of, for most places, right, that have significant universities.
It is. Yes, and part of the work I'm doing here is trying to disentangle what is it that makes a place or an institution, a university, sticky. Is it something that the institution itself can be doing, or is it something maybe that's outside of its control? Where are we located? What's the economic base which we're located in? But that also implies that maybe the role, the function of our college or university is to help create the conditions to keep undergraduate or now alumni talent there and present. Right. And again, what we're talking about is a very different function of a college or university.
It is. It also suggests that a level of collaboration is required, as you say, between the university, the political class, the private sector, and others. David, is there an example of how this can be done?
Of a knowledge town. So, I think one of the observations that's been made about our book is that, well, you're just describing a big R1 institution in a major city, and so you're talking about a place like Ohio State, for instance. Well, that's obviously a knowledge town. You're not necessarily saying anything new. And I think an important part of the book is that we think that even smaller cities or secondary cities or even small towns can engage a knowledge town strategy, right? Especially around questions of like quality of life, for example. There's every reason to think that this is a strategy that works, again, not just simply on the coasts, but in other places. One of the first places I gave a book talk was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which doesn't necessarily yet fit exactly the model of a knowledge town for reasons we can go into, but it is the city, as it turns out, is very much an attractor for talent. The person that invited me there said to me, my career was first of all in Manhattan, and then I went to Shanghai, and now we're here in Fort Wayne. And I said, I have to ask why. He says, well, I have a wife, and we have a family now. We wanted to, have a nice house to be able to raise our kids, and we couldn't do that in these other places. And so I think that's the example of what we're talking about here. Though I can point to other instances if you'd like.
Now, in that instance, David, that refers to a set of needs that people have at a certain stage of life. Yes. Where a place like Fort Wayne or Kingston, Ontario, or many of our intelligent communities, have a role. Is there? I have two questions, and first one: is there a way? I know you talk about this. Is there a way to scale that so that you get the critical mass of what I call the non-marquee name communities to be able to embrace that?
Yeah, critical mass question. So one of the points that we make in the book is, I think, just because of the nature of cities or towns as complex systems, to affect big change, you don't necessarily need to have big programs. Yeah, that's the nature of nonlinear change in complex institutions. Even small changes can have outsized effects. And so one of the things that we focus on in the book is that these sorts of, turning into a knowledge town can be the result of one or two or just a few people engaging in one small change that has all sorts of feedback effects. So, for instance, deciding to make neighborhoods more walkable. Just that instance alone could start a flywheel effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it is something like that, right? That all of a sudden, pushes the trigger or pulls the trigger on it. Now, the second part of that, though, David, that I really wanted to jump into is something that, increasingly we're talking more and more about, we're thinking more and more about, and we realize that we've lost a significant piece of it, and that is social trust. Because I suspect that people move to these towns, these smaller towns, these smaller places, small compared to New York where I live, or Singapore, for the same reason they actually go to church or join other community groups, and that is that the ultimate quest is to reshape communities and their knowledge enterprises for an economic and social equilibrium. A lot of that activity, I find, revolves around trust and social networks, right? And I'm not talking about Facebook groups or chat groups, that kind of stuff, because we know what Meta's intentions are with that stuff based on the recent court ruling. But within that context, David, you talk a lot about social capital incubators. I'm going to ask you what they are and how you build them or rebuild them for social interaction. But do you agree that social trust, I should say, social networks and trust are critical fuel for the kinds of things you're talking about? They are a form of knowledge, aren't they?
Oh, unquestionably. And I think part of the reason that we focus so much attention as we did in the book is there's such a deficit of social capital and those bonds of trust in so many communities. And I think in part we wanted our book to address that particular problem. And again, it's part of the conditions that makes a place attractive to settle, a place attractive to live in, a place with large amounts, thick amounts of social capital are just a natural draw.
Yeah. We spoke with Dr. Sutherland in Sunshine Coast about the Australian ban on phones in schools for the under 16. What's your view of the impact of social media and how literally you get people back into networks where they can do that? We actually had the Pickup Pigeons. You got a group of people who pick up garbage in New York City every night. These are young professionals, and they love it. There's this connection. But what's the view of digital media here? Because it's not going away.
Well, no, it's not going away. But as you point out, a trend that we're seeing, and I don't know how sticky this is yet, but young people seem to be, if not turning away from social media, maybe they're less engaged with it, very deliberately, for all the reasons that we've just sort of laid out here, all the ills of social media. And what replaces that then is more actual connection. You began this segment by not dismissing Facebook, but that's not real social connection. And I absolutely agree. We write a lot in the book about third places, and that a college or university to be a knowledge enterprise has to be the principal third place for a community. And there are very, very few colleges and universities today that play that sort of role.
Yeah.
Many of them put up either physical or metaphorical walls separating them from the rest of the community. I was doing some consulting with a college, let's say somewhere in the Midwest. I don't want to say where it exactly is, but they very deliberately put up physical walls between their campus and the surrounding community.
Wow.
And what we're saying is that to be a knowledge enterprise, your relationship to the surrounding community is much more porous, and that people on campus are not just student and faculty, but they're also members of the community as well.
Yeah. And in lieu of an institution, an academic institution, what is the knowledge center in a place? Where would you look when you talk about, or you write about, micropolitan areas that may not necessarily have 62,000 people at Ohio State that don't have that?
Right. And it doesn't have to be, a 62,000 student university. We talk a lot in the book about micro colleges, which we drew from the Alternative Universities book that I wrote. But the idea of a college being, maybe 100 people. Mm-hmm. And in a way, the way colleges were in this country in the 19th century, most of them were on the order of, dozens or maybe 100 or 150 students. And so for places that don't have an academic institution, we recommend thinking about forming a micro college as a particular sort. Our initial title for this book was A College in Every Town. Mm-hmm. And the publisher said, well, we're not crazy about that. How about we call it college towns? We said, no, because that's not exactly what we're talking about. And it turns out it was Dominic's son that said, why not call it knowledge towns? And we said, we have to trademark that.
Yeah. All right. So, and the kid gets, a dinner, right? For that.
Exactly.
We've got about a couple of minutes left, unfortunately, because you and I could go on for a long time. I want to, David, I want to talk to you about the summit, but in Ohio in October, of which you'll be a central part. But more importantly, the theme that we've chosen, which I have a little bit of an issue with, even though, I was part of the decision-making process and kind of kicked that off, which is, we call it Midwest Rising. And 10 seconds after I did that, I said, oh, Jesus, there's a New Yorker being condescending to the Midwest. The Midwest has risen, hasn't it? And if so, if you agree with that, or if it is, at a point now where it's doing the kinds of things you're talking about, where does Ohio in the Columbus area play? Dominic, your colleague called Ohio a hinge state. What will people see? What will they learn about Ohio itself when they're out there in October?
So, if Ohio is at all representative of the Midwest, I think that they will get both the innovation, but also some of the challenges that we face. So if we take Ohio, for instance, as a state, we can point to a burgeoning biotech industry here. I'm not ready to pronounce us as, Biotech Valley or, the Silicon Valley of biotech, but it's becoming quite an important sector, I think, of Ohio's economy. That said, Columbus is, I think, the only city that is certainly over the last decade and a half, the only city that's really thriving. And I think Columbus really is an example of the Midwest rising.
Sure is.
Again, I would not want that to paper over some of the challenges that we face. Columbus is unique in some ways in the Midwest. It never has been a Rust Belt city, unlike Cleveland, let's say, or Pittsburgh, Toledo, Detroit. I sometimes joke that Columbus is a Sun Belt city without the sun. And so, our industries have always been research and government and banking and insurance. And so I think when people come to Columbus, they will see that. They will see a city on the move. They will see a region on the move. Yeah. But that we shouldn't let that overshadow some of the challenges that we face.
Right. And there, like any other place, there are many. But Ohio itself, we've had through our institute there the development now of intelligent communities all over the place. Hilliard and Westerville, Defiance now is a Smart 21 city. People say, "What? Where are these places?" But to your point earlier, where any place can be home, and the reasons people choose these places. Ohio has a soul. You can slip into it very comfortably and become a part of it. Do you agree that there's an animating factor in Ohio that maybe translates into some of the things that you talk about?
I do, yes, and I think it gets expressed in lots of ways. I'll talk about my city. Columbus is sometimes called Test City, USA. Yeah, meaning new products and especially food tends to be tested out here for reasons I think maybe we're demographically bland or at least demographically median. But being called Test City USA really shows that in many ways this is where innovation happens. Yep, and innovation isn't necessarily just the next app. The other thing I like to say about Ohio and my city in particular is if you want to live in a city, it's a great place to raise a family, which you can't always say about a lot of cities, I think. Right. I love Chicago. I'm not certain that we were able to raise our kids the way that we can here in Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. And I know, it's interesting because I notice New York now is trying to evolve into a family-friendly city as well, taking a lot of principles that they would find, in Ohio, but also in your book.
Especially at the neighborhood level.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. In a sense, think of a city as a collection of neighborhoods. Yeah.
Yeah. And New York has always had that strength. Yes. Knowledge towns, colleges and universities as talent magnets. You're the guy. You're the author. There it is. Just in 30 seconds, David. When you think about intelligent communities and the movement that you're integral part of, where do you see us headed?
So maybe I will give a little bit of a teaser for the talk I will give in October. Because I want to talk about cities or regions as scenes. And so I guess I want to talk about the transition from smart to intelligent to a scene.
A scene. Okay. That is a teaser.
We're going to create a scene.
We're going to make a scene with Professor David Staley. And you look like David Lynch, admittedly, right? So we're going to... And I'll tell you, you're always a good show. I loved listening to you. I could listen to you for hours. So, I really appreciate you coming today. I know you got things you got to get to, but it's great to see you, and we'll do this again.
Thank you very much, Lou. Thanks very much.
That was Professor David Staley, and he will be at the Columbus Summit in October. I'm Lou Zacharilla for the Intelligent Community Forum and the Intelligent Community Podcast, along with our producer, Ari Yates, reminding you there really is no place like home. To find out more, go to intelligentcommunity.org. Take care, everybody.